I think this most important thing, it's certainly the most important thing as in acting, is listening.
There are actors who become famous because they fit Hollywood's expectations. And then there are actors like James Woods, who never quite fit anywhere at all, yet somehow made that misfit energy unforgettable. For more than 3 decades, from the late 1970s through the 1990s, Woods wasn't just acting in films. He was thinking through them, as if every scene was a problem he needed to solve faster than anyone else in the room. Long before he became known for intense, sharp-edged characters on screen, Woods came from a world that had nothing to do with movie sets or red carpets. Born in 1947 in Utah, he grew up far from Hollywood's influence, yet his intelligence set him apart early. He earned a scholarship to the prestigious Massachusetts Institute of Technology, where he studied political science, an unusual path for someone who would later be known for emotionally charged performances. At MIT, something unexpected happened. While excelling academically, Woods found himself drawn to theater, not as a hobby, but as a second language, one that allowed him to express the same analytical mind in a completely different form. Even then, he didn't approach acting as pure emotion. He observed it, dissected it, treated every role like a system that could be understood, broken down, and rebuilt from the inside. But the real turning point came when he made a decision that shocked those around him. With only 1 semester left before graduating, Woods walked away from MIT. Not because he failed, but because he felt pulled towards something else entirely. He left academia behind and moved toward acting training at Yale University, choosing uncertainty over a guaranteed intellectual path. It was a risky move, especially for someone with his academic potential. Yet, in hindsight, it revealed a defining trait of Woods's life. He didn't choose the safest road, or even the most logical one. He chose the one that matched the intensity of his own mind. And from that moment forward, a very different kind of career began to take shape. One that would eventually make him one of Hollywood's most distinctive and complicated figures. When James Woods finally stepped into professional acting, Hollywood didn't immediately know what to do with him. He didn't fit the mold of the leading man, and he wasn't comfortable playing safe supporting roles either. What he brought instead was something rarer and far more unsettling: absolute control. In the 1970s, Woods began building a reputation in roles that didn't ask for charm or warmth, but for precision. One of his earliest breakthroughs came with Night Moves, 1975, where even in a supporting presence, there was already something distinct about him. He didn't perform like someone trying to be noticed. He performed like someone calculating exactly how much attention he wanted to allow. But it was The Onion Field, 1979, that truly changed how people saw him. Based on a real criminal case, Woods played a cold, detached killer in a way that avoided theatrics entirely. There was no exaggeration, no emotional shortcuts, just a controlled stillness that made the character feel disturbingly real. Audiences didn't just watch him, they studied him, unsure whether they were witnessing acting or something closer to behavioral analysis. By the early 1980s, his screen identity had begun to solidify. Directors realized Woods didn't need to dominate a scene to control it. He could sit quietly in the corner of a frame and still shift the entire emotional balance of a moment. That quality reached a new level in David Cronenberg's Videodrome, 1983. Here, Woods played Max Wren, a character drawn into a world where reality itself becomes unstable. But what made the performance memorable wasn't confusion, it was curiosity. Woods played intelligence as a kind of risk, as if thinking too quickly could become dangerous. There's a moment in the film where his character interrupts everyday conversation with sudden urgency, shifting tone without warning. It's small, almost invisible, but it reveals everything about his approach. His characters don't wait for permission to think. By the end of this period, Woods had become something rare in Hollywood. Not a traditional star, but a presence. An actor whose tension didn't come from volume or aggression, but from the feeling that his mind was always one step ahead of everyone else in the room. By the mid-1980s, James Woods had entered the most powerful phase of his career, an era where his intensity was no longer surprising, but expected. Directors didn't cast him to be likable or comforting. They cast him because he could make ambition, paranoia, and moral collapse feel psychologically precise rather than theatrical. One of the defining performances of this period came in Once Upon a Time in America, 1984. Surrounded by a cast of larger-than-life figures, Woods chose a quieter strategy. He didn't compete for attention. Instead, he played resentment like a slow-burning calculation. Every glance, every pause, suggested a man measuring consequences rather than reacting emotionally. That restraint made the character far more dangerous than any outburst could have. Around the same time, films like Against All Odds reinforced his reputation for playing men who always seemed slightly ahead of the emotional moment. Characters who understood situations too quickly for their own good. But it was Salvador, 1986, that pushed him into a different league entirely. As journalist Richard Boyle, Woods delivered a performance that felt unfiltered yet meticulously controlled. The character is chaotic, selfish, even morally compromised, but never random. Beneath the volatility, there's a constant awareness, as if he's documenting his own collapse in real time. It earned him an Academy Award nomination and remains one of the most intense performances of his career. From there, Woods entered a stretch of roles that explored decline as much as ambition. In The Boost, 1988, the energy shifts from drive to erosion. He plays a man whose pursuit of success becomes indistinguishable from self-destruction. What makes the performance unsettling is not dramatic breakdowns, but exhaustion, the slow realization that control is slipping away. Even in the early 1990s, he rarely softened. In The Hard Way, 1991, opposite Michael J. Fox, comedy comes not from jokes, but friction. Woods plays irritation as a permanent state of being, turning every interaction into a clash of perspectives. By this point, his screen persona was fully formed. Men driven by intelligence, sharpened by ego, and trapped in systems they believed they can still outthink. It was the peak of his artistic identity, complex, volatile, and impossible to ignore. As the 1990s progressed, James Woods began moving into a different kind of career rhythm, less centered on leading man dominance and more on precision roles, voice work, and carefully chosen appearances. The intensity didn't disappear, but it started to evolve into something more controlled, sometimes even playful. In films like Diggstown, 1992, Woods leaned into confidence and verbal agility rather than confrontation. His characters became less about explosive tension and more about manipulation through intelligence, winning arguments before they fully began. Even in a smaller appearance in Chaplin, 1992, his presence remained unmistakable, sharp, direct, and immediately defined. Then came Casino, 1995, where Woods played one of his most morally corrosive roles as Lester Diamond. Unlike his earlier characters who seemed driven by ambition or logic, this one was driven by neediness, resentment, and emotional exploitation. It was an ugly performance in many ways, but deliberately so, showing how far he could go in portraying human decay without softening the edges. That same year, in Nixon, Woods stepped into a quieter role inside the machinery of political power, showing restraint instead of dominance. It marked a clear shift. He was no longer the center of the story, but a sharp piece within it. By the late 1990s, Woods also found a surprising second life in voice acting. As Hades in Disney's Hercules, 1997, he transformed his fast, biting delivery into comedy. The same intensity that once felt dangerous now became entertaining, even charming. It was a reinvention, not of talent, but of tone. In his later years, James Woods gradually stepped further away from the center of Hollywood. While he never officially retired, his on-screen presence became increasingly sporadic, replaced by occasional film roles, television appearances, and voice work. One of his most recognizable later performances came in Ray Donovan, 2013 to 2018, where he played a hardened Boston mob figure, an echo of the kind of intense, morally complex characters that defined his earlier career. Outside of acting, Woods became highly active on social media, especially Twitter, where he shared strong political opinions and engaged frequently in public debates. This visibility kept his name in the public eye, but also contributed to a more polarized reputation within the industry. In 2018, he lost representation from his longtime agency, Gersh, an event he publicly linked to his political views. In recent years, Woods has remained largely out of mainstream film production, appearing only occasionally in smaller projects or archival discussions of Hollywood history. Now in his late 70s, he lives a much quieter life in the United States, largely away from the studio system that once defined him. He has no widely publicized recent acting commitments, and his public appearances have become rare. There are no major confirmed updates regarding new family developments or significant personal changes in recent years. What remains, however, is his legacy. A performer known for intelligence-driven intensity, unpredictable energy, and characters that always felt one thought ahead of everyone else on screen. Whether celebrated or debated, his presence in American cinema is still unmistakable and unlikely to be forgotten.